Macho.
The Master and His Role. Deathless living. Life does not end with death. Survival after death is as true as death after life. To live in order to die or to die in order to survive would be a poor proposition indeed. The death that follows life is not a lifelessness, nor is life after death a deathlessness. Life is a positive manifestation of the true existence which negative death cannot extinguish. To end the ceaseless succession of lives and deaths, death itself has to be annihilated in life. On annihilating death in life, by completely freeing consciousness of all illusion, man becomes God in the naked truth of his own true existence. He remains infinitely conscious God, irrespective of his keeping or dropping the gross, subtle, and mental bodies, just as man remains man, whether he is dressed or undressed.
Okay, before we begin, since there are quite a few new people, these sessions, of course, thanks to Farzeen and Somit, we've been doing for a couple of years now. The nomenclature for this forum, I would put it as reading of Baba's words rather than book reading, because book reading is something totally different. Reading of Baba's words. Now, these words have come from the source of these words have come from the source of truth, and Baba has said that anything that proceeds from his source, it has a potency, it has some kind of an energy, and when we work with those words, it definitely helps us somewhere deep down, whether we understand it or not. So reading is one thing, second is understanding, but as Baba has so beautifully said, that understanding has no meaning, love has meaning, obedience has more meaning, holding my Raman has the most meaning. So when we say understanding has no meaning, this is how I interpret that, and this is the example which I often give, is supposing somebody says, well, a smoker says that, well, I do understand that smoking is injurious to health. But what is the point of that understanding unless that understanding radically changes the person's behavior in stopping to smoke? Otherwise, understanding has no meaning, it's just a piece of information and we just keep on gathering that information. So understanding is one thing, what we do here, and the most important thing is trying to apply that in our day-to-day living. To live Baba's words is what makes all the difference. In other words, what is important is that these readings should transform us in our day-to-day life. If that happens, if not 100%, even if it is 1%, 10%, well, somewhere we have progressed. Now this is something to, now Baba's words, people feel, are, they say, very difficult to understand. Sometimes they may be very dry. So I try to put a little ketchup on that, a sauce or something like that, trying to make it more tasty or palatable and understandable. Now this is as now Soumya read something, it may or may not make any sense, so we'll try to see what Baba wants to say. This is something to do with death. Now, in the last Baba's birthday that went 25th February, I spoke about, on the same subject, the title was The Art of Dying, you see. And where it says, Baba says, very beautifully, no one dies. No one knows to die. The rare one who knows to die is never born again. In other words, what Baba says or talks about dying is not the dying of the physical form. what he talks about is dying of our limited self, dying of our separative self, dying of our desires, dying of our ignorance, dying of everything that makes us feel that we are separate from God. In other words, the death of the bubble around the drop within the ocean, which makes the drop identify itself as separated from the ocean. Now, this may seem a little confusing, but the ocean or God or existence, God is just a label that we give. The ocean is all that is. The ocean is all that is, in a sense that there is nothing besides the ocean. And we are not talking about the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. We are comparing God to an ocean who is limitless, unlimited. The important thing we have to understand is God is not only limitless and unlimited, infinite, but He is also indivisible. God cannot be divided. Anything that exists cannot exist without it having that astitva, existence or God. That's what Baba says. Now, when we consider ourselves as something different from God, Baba says that we are like a drop soap, a drop. What distinguishes a drop from the ocean is the bubble around the drop. The bubble around the drop makes the drop think, feel, identify and behave as if the drop is separated from the ocean. And when the bubble bursts, the ignorance bursts, the illusion bursts, the Maya bursts. What is the experience of the drop? The experience of the drop is not I am a part of the ocean, but I am the ocean, because the ocean is an indivisible ocean. So that is what Baba is talking about, real dying. Real dying is the death of the limitation, the death of all that keeps us separated from God. And Baba uses a very beautiful sentence where Baba says that when the bubble bursts, the drop swallows the ocean. That's the experience. The drop swallows the ocean means the drop becomes one with the ocean and experiences. In Hindu talk they call it Aham Brahmasmi. In Sufism they call it Anubhak, or God realization or self-realization. So that is what Baba is talking about. Now here, deathless living. That means living that you never die. Because Baba says that nobody dies, nobody knows to die. What we call as normal death is just the death of the physical body. We have got three bodies, Baba says, the gross, the subtle and the mental. The sthul, the shukshma and the mana. And what we call death is just approximate, you can say 1/3 of that body, which is going into the elements, whether you cremate it, whatever you do, whatever you want to do, bury it. But the other two components, that is the energy component and the mind, continues its journey onwards in the realm of semi-subtle world, astral world, and experiences the state of heaven or hell, depending upon the prepondering samskaras or impressions or karmas. And once that period is over, it takes punarjanam, it takes reincarnation, and then goes on and on and on, almost unendingly. Right? Now we are not, you said Shine is Muslim. So most Muslim, even Parsis don't believe in reincarnation. Parsis don't believe in, there's no reincarnation in the Parsi Dharam, although we believe. Christians don't believe, Muslims don't believe. So people do say, and I'm just digressing a little bit, because it may be a little unpalatable or indigestible, and that is perfectly understandable, that when Baba was asked, that you say that there is only one God, and Baba nodded and said, yes. Now this is what I say, ketchup and cream, because that's how it makes it a little more interesting. And Baba was asked, but you say that there is only one avatar of God who keeps coming over and over again. Now we call it avatar, some call it messenger of God, some call it prophet of God, some call it Son of God, you may name it anything, but Baba says it is that one soul which keeps coming. And Baba actually named some of them in this cycle of time, starting from Zoroaster, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and now Meher Baba. He just named them, doesn't mean that there were not many, there were quite a few more. When Baba says about minor incarnations, he says that there are minor incarnations which he has not named or mentioned. So, and you say that one soul only keeps coming. You see, and Baba again nodded, yes, it is true. Then how is it that you are teaching different things at different times? Because truth is one. Truth cannot be different. And Baba, being a very good actor also, says, what is it that I taught differently? Oh, well, when you came as Rama and Krishna, then you talked about, reincarnation, coming over and over again. And when you came as Zoroaster or Jesus or Muhammad, you talked about one life, one birth and one death. They don't believe in reincarnation. So Baba said, it's the same thing. And how can it be the same thing? They are poles apart, they are diametrically opposite, and how can it be the same thing? And Baba said, but it is the same thing. The difference is in the interpretation. The difference is in the interpretation. And who does the interpretation? All this priest class, the dastus, the padris, the maulvis, the pandits, and all that. They are not one who have realized God. And so they interpret it to the best of what they understand. The person said, no, I don't understand. Explain to me. And this is how Baba explains. This is what I understand. Of course, there are Baba's exact words which I cannot reproduce, but words to the effect. And Baba says that God is like an ocean. You see, it's just one, indivisible. When creation took place, what we talk about the Big Bang, or who am I, or the hooky, or the whim, or the urge to know itself. When this thing happened, there was a movement, and in that movement there were bubbles forming. So in other words, what Baba says is that when the drop within the ocean started identifying itself as different or separated from the ocean, that was one real birth. It's a little maybe difficult to understand, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. And that one bubble which has apparently separated from the ocean, it has an evolutionary process of gases, stone, metal, minerals, of vegetables, and insects, fish, bird, animals, and then human being. That bubble continues to change the form, but the drop is identifying itself as separate. Then that after the evolutionary journey, Baba talks about the spiritual path and all that, when the bubble bursts and the drop identifies itself with the ocean, that is the one real death. So if Muhammad and Jesus and Zoroaster talked about one birth and one death, this is what they meant. But in the intervening periods, the bubble keep on changing, the forms keep on changing, the bodies keep on changing. You see, that is what the Vedantic thought talks about reincarnation process. So in reality, in truth, there is only one real birth and one real death. Between that one real birth and one real death, there are innumerable births and deaths of the bodies or forms which the Vedantic thought talks about in terms of reincarnation process. This is what Baba has explained, and I think it is a very, of course I am not speaking the exact words, it is a very powerful explanation which Baba has given, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense in the reason. Now I'll tell you why. Otherwise there is no logic, because God is absolutely benevolent. He is absolutely kind, and He is totally just. He is very just. He cannot be unjust. Then how is it that some people are born lame or blind or different? That means there is something to it which we do not understand. And then what is something to it is nothing but the past karmas. And that is what it is happening. So it makes a lot of sense, but there are certain people who are just closed and they say, no, you cannot ask God anything, you cannot discuss this issue. God knows. But why would God make a child born without a leg or without an eye or something like that? That, in other words, it is all within the law of karma, and it is because of the reincarnation process that justice is meted out. Coming back to our reading now, life does not end with death. Of course, now we have got abundant proofs of reincarnation processes where children are saying that, oh, in my last life I was so and so, and they take you to the places. Now you cannot expect a small child of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 taking you to some place and showing that this is where I was born, and this is where this thing is, and this is where that thing is. Now I have been even told that they are even recording voices from the spirit world. They are recording voices or talking. It's not just auto writing, but they are even recording voices. So in other words, this body, when it dies, it really doesn't, there is no finale, over. No, there is life after life, there is life after death, and then that is in a different realm. In a different realm, like Baba says, that the astral world or the semi-subtle world is here and now. But just because we are not equipped with those equipments, we cannot perceive it. It's something like a person who is deaf from birth, sound is there. But who is deaf, voice is a different world. Voice is a different world for a person who is deaf from birth. But it is there. Just because I cannot perceive it, I do not have those yantras, I do not have that perception to perceive it, does not mean that it is not there. We have people who are clairaudience. Have you heard the word? Clairvoyance, where they can see the spirits, they can see, they can hear, they can talk with the spirit. So in other words, everything is here and now, but just because we are not equipped with those equipments. Now let's say, for example, the phone. The wireless, everything is here. It's all here. But can we do it? But because of some scientific knowledge, we are able to see, we are able to chat, we are able to do Skype to somebody who's sitting, 10,000 miles from here. How is it that we are seeing the image? That means just because it cannot be explained within the parameters of our understanding does not mean that it does not exist. That's what it is. So coming back to what Baba says, life does not end with death. Survival after death is as true as death after life. That means after life there is death, so-called death. And in that, people are there in the astral world, semi-subtle world, coming back into this world, and that keeps on happening. To live in order to die, or to die in order to survive, would be a poor proposition indeed. It is not. The whole idea, this is how I understand, of creation, again this is my understanding, is, as Baba explained in this beautiful book, what we call as the magnum opus of Meher Baba's spiritual literature, God Speaks, where he talks about the different stages of God, and he says that in stage 1, which is the beyond state of God, also called the Paratpar Parabrahma state. In Sufi terminology, it's called the Vara-ul Vara state, or Gaheb-ul Gaheb state, where God is, but consciousness is not. Is it getting too bored? Too boring? We can have a cup of tea. In the stage 1, God is, but consciousness is not. This is the exact same state in which each one of us, every one of us go when we are in sound sleep state. When we are in deep sleep state or sound sleep state, we are one with God, in that Paratpar Parabrahma state. That means every single day we merge in that one state of God, where God is but consciousness is not. When I am in my sound sleep state, I am not talking about this state which is called the false awake state. I am not talking about the dream state where I am dreaming and using my subtle faculties unconsciously. In my dream, I am using my subtle faculties unconsciously. I am on bed, my eyes are closed, but I see myself walking. My eyes are closed, but I am seeing. My ears are dead, but I am hearing. My mouth is shut, but I am talking. Now, which is that mouth? Which is that eye? Which is that ear? Baba says those are the subtle senses which you are using unconsciously and indirectly. I am not talking about that state also. I am talking about the deeper state where I am. But the consciousness that I am is not there. And we call it a sound sleep state or deep sleep state, where Baba says exactly the same state as God is, but consciousness is not the Paratpar Brahma state. So it is so heartening, so, what should I say, sukoon, as they say, so nice to know that every single day we are actually merging in that state of God and coming back refreshed. That's what Baba says. Now, what is the fun of that state? There is no arthritis, there is no rheumatism, and in that state, there is no neck ache, there is no cervical spondylosis, there is no lumbar spondylosis, and there is no mother-in-law. I always say. So, in that state, there is nothing. But what is the fun of that? Because there, the consciousness is not there. So now we have to go into that state of bliss or peace with consciousness. In other words, what is God realization, Baba says, is to be conscious of your unconsciousness. Now this is a dichotomy. How can you be conscious of your unconsciousness? You see, and now in order to know who I am, because consciousness was not there, I had to experience who I am not. Only then I will know who I am. To give you an example, and this is a very common example which I keep giving. A bird is flying up in the air, free. Bird is enjoying freedom. But if you tell the bird, oh, wow, you're so lucky, you're so fortunate, you are enjoying freedom. You say, what? I don't know what is freedom. Because the bird cannot experience and appreciate freedom because it was always free. So what do? We catch the bird, put it in the cage. Let the bird experience what bondage is. Let it flutter, let it tak 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 tak, let it do that for a couple of days, weeks, months, years, whatever it is. And then again free the bird. Now the bird, after the experience of bondage, is again in the same state of freedom. But now there is a whole world of difference. The bird is able to appreciate and experience freedom because it experienced bondage. Am I making sense?
Correct.
In other words, if there is only light, you do not experience and enjoy light as light unless you have experienced darkness. So it is only with the experiencing of the opposite that we are able to appreciate and experience this. So God being very smart, God is just a label that we are giving. You can call him anything. God being very smart, it wanted to know itself, who am I? But it was in the unconscious state. So when it created a creation, which was totally opposite of what it was. You see, totally opposite of what it was. Here all power, here all helplessness. There it is all bliss, here it is all trouble and difficulties and problems. So in other words, it is own creation. In other words, creation is a divine incubator in which the consciousness of the soul incubates and becomes perfect and says, wow, I am God. Aham Brahmasmi, Analbhak, Soham, whatever you call it. So that is the whole idea of creation. Creation is to go through the whole process of evolution and know the answer to that very first question, who am I? As the real answer or correct answer, I am God. Because there is nothing besides God. Everyone and everything is God. You see, in reality or in totality, then Baba says that what is the difference? Baba says, because when Baba declared himself as God or the avatar, obviously there was opposition. Whenever in the past, Mansur declared himself and he was beheaded. There were, in Parsi literature, we say Jamshed Padsha. Jamshed Padsha said that he is the same as Ahura Mazda, and he was. Because people don't understand, we have got a very different concept of God is God and human beings are human beings, and you cannot compare, there is no way. But Baba says if God is infinite, what does it mean? When he says he is infinite, that means there cannot be other than him. There cannot be any pinpoint which he is not or where he is not. Am I making sense? When he is infinite, then everyone and everything is gone. If I consider myself as separate, then that means God becomes finite. Oh, you are God, you are different, I am different. Because you are not infinite. The very fact that we say he is infinite means he is all encompassing. Then what is the difference between those who have realized I am God and those who have not? Baba says it is only the experiential knowledge. Baba uses this word that I not only say that I am the avatar, I say that each one of you is the avatar in one way or the other. And he goes on to say, even the ant and the sparrow is the avatar. The only difference is that the ant and the sparrow thinks, these are not the exact words, but knows itself as the ant and the sparrow, whereas I know myself as God. So the only difference between is the conscious knowledge that I am God. And that conscious knowledge will come only when we have experienced the conscious ignorance of who we are not. You see, it is only in Aarti we sing Neti, Neti, not this, not this. It is only a weeding out process. The other example that we give is, we'll let you know what fine you have to pay for coming late.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine
Good.
with it.
It's fine with the
Neti Neti. In the aarti we say Neti.
Thank you. Old people require this. Kidhar atak gaya kar. So, see, something like, and this is the example which I give, a sculptor, he brings a big piece of marble, a huge piece of marble, and he wants to make a murti, any murti, let us say Ganesha. What does the sculptor do with the patthar, with the stone? He only chips off the unwanted part and the murti is prakat there. He doesn't have to bring anything. And therefore Baba says that spirituality is not an accumulation from without. It is an unfoldment from within. Every one of us has it. But along with what we have it, we have something plus the garbage, the kachra, the unwanted things. And what are those? Our past samskaras, our impressions, our I am this, anything after I am. I am is the real thing. I am. After I am, let us say I am a man, I am whatever, I am an Indian, I am a Parsi, I am a this, I am a that. That I am ke baad mein jo aata hai, that is the kachra. That garbage has to go and the I am remains. Just as how in the patthar, the murti is already there. He doesn't bring anything from outside, he just chips off the unwanted part. So we need to chip off the unwanted part and the murti is there. So coming back to our reading now, the death that follows life is not a lifelessness. Because after this life, there is supposedly death. And in that death also there is life. We experience the state of heaven and hell. जिसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? जन्नत और जहन्नम, whatever. हाँ? Jahannam. Okay. That is it is not a locale. It is not a place. You cannot Google search it. There is no latitude, longitude. Baba says it is a state of mind. It is a state of mind, and it is again, Baba says it is in the here and now. It is not something far away. Okay, from here to let us say 100 miles up, it is like, after 100 mile to 200 mile heaven and then something hell, nothing of that sort. It is all the here and now. So Baba says the death that follows life is not a lifelessness, nor is life after death a deathlessness. Life is a positive manifestation of the true existence which negative death cannot extinguish. Now, yes, the wordings are something, So, in other words, what is life? It's a positive expression of existence. And why is life given? Every life that is given basically is an opportunity for us to know the real question, who am I? To know the real answer, I am God. Like Baba has very beautifully said, and in many. One of Baba's most beautiful statement is, the aim of life is to love God. And the goal of life is to become one with God. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, whom we know as a perfect master of Vivekananda, had a very beautiful statement when he said, he is born to no purpose, who, having the rare privilege of being born a man, does not realize God in this very life. That means the very purpose of being born as a human being, it has but one purpose: to search the answer to the original question and realize yourself as God. Other than that, you might as well be born as an animal. What difference does it make? And another, even Kabir says the same thing, that if being born a man, if you cannot, then what's the point? What's the point? So in other words, we need to be, the most important thing is we need to be focused on why we are here and what are we supposed to do. We have our other subsidiary agendas, yes, to beget children, to have houses, to have cars, to have this, to have that, make money, all that is fine. Baba never said don't do all these things. But the main purpose of the human form is to get the answer to the original question. And Baba says that in one birth itself you can get to that, provided we are focused. We need to be focused. Now that many have come, and we are going to stop a little early because Rakesh wants to show a Baba movie. Why I am saying we need to be focused in the sense, there's a beautiful statement in English which says, he who gives God a second place gives him no place. The moment we relegate God to a second place, then we give him no place. We have to be constantly giving God the most prominent or the most important place in our life, in whatever we do. Now, why did I say this? I said this because when we fix up a time for Baba activity, any Baba, and this is what for those who have been with us, we start on the dot by the second. Why? Because once we have announced that we are going to have a meeting at such and such a time, and this is a fact, we take it with 100% surety that Baba's presence is there. He is there. And when he is there, how dare we come 1 minute late? How dare we come 1 minute late? It is very important to understand that we cannot make him wait even for a second. Minute is too long. You see? And once why I am saying, because when we started there were hardly any people over here. We take God very casually. Baba says, that all problems in life can be sorted out. We, instead of taking God seriously and life lightly, we take life seriously and God lightly. We take it, we take this as a picnic, as a party, as some function. Okay, आधा घंटा late हो गया, तो what is the harm? Nothing, there is no harm. But we miss out on the opportunity of disciplining ourselves, of telling ourselves that we are supposed to go there at a certain time. So make plans. Simple logic. If you have to catch a flight of 4 o'clock, would you dare to go at 4:01? 4:01 is too, because your counter only closes. No, you won't. Why? Because you have given that thing an importance that I cannot go late. Or if somebody said, okay, this movie is very good, beautiful, don't miss the beginning. It's very beautiful. If you miss the beginning, then maja nahi hai. Would you dare to miss the beginning? No. What will we do? We would rather be 15 minutes early because we are focused on seeing the beginning of that movie. If we give that kind of seriousness to all activities connected with Baba, why Baba? Even all activities connected in our life, that if we are committed to time, we have to see that we are on time. Once in a way, if something goes wrong, we can understand. You see, but then what will happen? There is maja, there is fun. We all, the Tuesday sessions that we do at the center, I have seen it. People are running to see that they do not come 1 minute late because of the commitment. I remember a case, where, now I am digressing a little bit just to give the importance of timing. And Baba gave a lot of importance to timing, and he is a very, what should I say? Baba uses the word for himself, ustad. मैं तो उस्तादों का उस्ताद हूँ. He was very shrewd, and perhaps that is the reason why he created this scenario. Okay, once there was an issue where Baba would be living in Mehrazad, for those who have been Mehrazad, and then he would be coming to Mehrabad in the morning, and then do his work and then go back to Mehrazad. And Baba has never been, just sitting like a long face, and all the time he would be active and lagaving chavi, and if things are very settled down, then he will lagav chavi in such a way that some two people will fight, and somehow, he wanted activity. So he said that now from today onwards, something, each one was given a day where the moment Baba comes at whatever time, let us say 8 o'clock in the morning he would ask somebody to give some kind of a performance, like a poetry or like some drama or something, some kind of composition, something or the other. And Baba would be, now this is what I say, Ustad hoga Ustad. Baba would turn up about 10 minutes late or 5 minutes late, 7 minutes late. So he would come by 8, 7, 8, 10, and then Baba would say, chalo start. And that would go on, and then Baba would be busy with other activities. The next day was Dr. Ghani's turn. Now if you know Dr. Ghani, there are lots of stories about it. He had a big head. Baba, this is the sign of Ghani, He had a big head, he was very witty, and he had wisdom and wit, very, very beautiful combination of wisdom, and Baba liked him a lot. And they were together in school, they grew up together. And of course it was difficult for Ghani to accept Baba as the God man. He was the head of the Sufi over there, in the Pune, in the entire Pune zone. And so next turn was Ghani's. So Baba came at 8 o'clock on that day, or rather a little before 8, and Ghani was a very lazy person, to such an extent that in the new life and all that, if he had to, change, he would not change his clothes, he would sleep with his clothes, sleep with his shoes, so that in the morning he doesn't have to wear them. He was like that. And he would not like to take bath. So Baba had instructions to get up at 4 o'clock and have bath. So he would go in the bathroom, close himself and I said, he will just do all these things. And one day, Baba opened the door and he was fully clothed and doing shoo. So that was the background of Ghani. So then, okay, sorry beta.
Not to you, Sri.
Sorry. Okay, so then what happened on that day, Ghani came in late. So Baba called him. Okay, we are concentrating on it. Baba called him. So Ghani went in a very relaxed mood like this. Jaise Najik aaya, he gave him a tight slap, thadak karke ekdam. And Baba used to be sometimes, in that thadak karke de diya usko, बैठो, बैठ गया. And he was still, and then with a smile again, Baba smiled and come. So this was general practice, that afterwards he would just embrace and the things would be forgotten. May I? You will know the penalty later. Okay, so then Ghani came again, second time. दूसरा टाइम भी ठड़क करके, he thought he must be giving an embrace now, एक तो थप्पड़ ले लिया, फटक से दूसरा जोर से मारा, और then Baba said, speak, means whatever you have prepared now speak. So Ghani also was, Dr. Ghani's name was Abdul Munsif. He was very beautifully, he narrated whatever he had prepared, and Baba liked it very much. And then again he called him and said, Sachi bata, मैं दो थप्पड़ मारा, how did you feel about it? What were you thinking? How did you feel about it? And Ghani was Baba's close friend, from childhood. Baba, मुझे भी लगा कि आपको एक ठक करके लगा नहीं, लेकिन आप मेरे बचपन के दोस्त थे इसलिए चले थे, छोड़ दिया। Okay, now why did this story came about was Baba's importance on timing, on punctuality. We were talking about punctuality. Thank you. That Baba has been extremely particular about timing, punctuality, to a point, I was told, I was not a witness to it, to a point where Baba said 12:30 the session would be over, and where, this is what somebody said, that irrespective of what is going on, the time 12:30, he would just get up and go. He was so punctual. Now, we are not punctual with regard to the end time. Sometimes you may exceed by a minute or a minute and a half or two to insert, wrap up what we are talking about. But Baba was so punctual. If whatever I have said just now had made some sense to each of you, my request would be, don't make Baba wait even for a minute. Come on time. Sorry, you were saying something.